Hey, it is Tristan Raquel with Fused Marriages, and we are jumping into a really interesting topic, all about the husband's view. So you want to tune in and have a seat. Make sure you are with your partner or spouse, and let's talk about it. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to Fused, transparent conversations for marriage, family, and relationships. We invite you to join us as we discuss topics that are thought about but not talked about. So tell your friends and family to check us out. And as always, join us on all of our socials as well as our website, fusedmarriages.com, for more content and resources.
For the third time, you look amazing.
For the third time?
Yeah. I did say it
you.
once before, and I
Thank
said
you,
it once
sir.
out there, and I'm saying it again because it's the truth, though.
It's
Sometimes you got to sink in. You're looking like with the glasses and bracelets and the color and the jacket. Look good. And the hoops.
okay. He trying
That's
to butter
good.
me up, y'all, because of today's topic. When he briefed me
That's a
on
good one,
it,
y'all.
he told me the title, and I just said, you know what? Okay, well, that's enough.
It's a good one. It's a good one. It has good intentions. It has good aspirations of hopefully sparking dialogue.
We gonna see.
Yeah.
We gonna see, because after our briefing, I was just, to you, sir. Please.
Okay. And I appreciate you for following me blindly
Mm-hmm.
again. Not the first time. Again, so hey, I'm just
Per
I
our
appreciate-
life.
Yeah, I respect the fact that you trust me. You trust me,
Well,
so
it's-
I appreciate that. With that being said, today's topic, it's about us trying to understand what to expect from one another.
What to expect from
What
one
to
another.
expect? As a husband, I may have certain expectations of what I see in a wife, in you. You as a wife, you may have expectation what you see in a husband or what you see in me, right? And oftentimes those play out. Sometimes those match up, and sometimes they don't. But the idea of this discussion is really to really understand. Okay, hold on. Oh wow, is that what men think, or is that what they see in a wife or whatever have you? And really to understand, hey, maybe we can have some understanding of why we got to that understanding, why we think like that. And I'm going to represent men in this case, right? And you represent women, and on the other side of it. And the discussion of the title of this show is what makes a good wife from a man's perspective, strictly from a man's perspective. Hopefully some of y'all didn't cringe on that like my wife did, but it's no harm in, I think, in understanding the psychology and the thinking of a man, of what he says when he says, hey, I'm looking for a wife and hopefully she is this, right? And we're not going to talk about maybe the surface things, whether, finances are right, or she looks good, or this, is she a good mother? I think those are pretty common and standard. So I tried to come up with maybe some pretty good ones, but maybe just some things that often are considered when a man is kind of even in a marriage and saying, okay, hey, is she a good wife or not?
Okay, so y'all caught that. What makes a good wife is today's topic. So we definitely want to hear from you, gentlemen, if you agree with what Michael is saying. Ladies, we want to hear if you've had any of the interactions or if you agree, because I am sure that we're going to be kind of exploring what that means, and we are all going to be listening with open ears and hearts just to see what it is, because ultimately we do want to be good partners to one another. So let's get it.
That's absolutely. And this is for discussion, right? Because this is really a man perspective, saying, okay, you know what? If married or not, if we're looking for it, we want to get married, or you actually are married, what makes maybe him feel good about where the relationship is, where the marriage is, and so forth, right?
Okay, so this is Michael's top 5. All right, number 1. Is this in order, in any particular order?
No, we can start. We can start. Yep.
Cool. Number 1, she can reassure him when things are going right for him.
And I should we the typo on that, but I should have put when things are not going right.
Oh, okay.
In this case, the idea of the definition, men's definition maybe of a good wife, can she reassure him when things aren't going right? Let's say things, job is not going right, business deal didn't go right, some of the things he wanted to do and pursue are not going right. does she have the ability to reassure him? Mm-hmm. Saying that it's going to be okay and reassuring not the same thing. Because like reassurance comes through almost like a feeling, like, you know what I mean? It's like an organic feeling that's saying, okay, yeah, you know what? I think it will be.
Give me an example.
Let's say, hey, you know what? I come home and I lost my job, right? And I'm concerned about my family. What's going to happen, what the kids are going to be able to eat. Are they going to be able to stay maybe and they're going to private school? How are we going to be able to stay in this house? Like the weight of that, right? Because you feel as a man like that's my responsibility. And unreassurance, is that a word? Unreassurance, not reassured. I don't know, but
just go with it.
You're not, let's say a statement that not reassured, like, okay, well, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? We got this bills to pay. That's not being reassuring. The opposite of that, in my opinion, being said, hey, you know what? Wife is talking to the husband. All right, you know what? I understand it's difficult. We're going to get through it together. You know what? If I got to do something different, make some adjustments on our budget, on our spending, we'll make sure to get through it. Don't worry about it. You know what? Let's pull together on it. Right? And that's when, to me, that is, as a man, I'm speaking, hey, that's the reassurance that I think any man would want. Like, hey, if we got to go move to a cardboard box, you know what? I don't want to, but I got you. I'm going where you going, right? He probably going to go fight 10 times harder once he, with that mentality versus having the pressure of like not being reassured when things are not going right.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. For starters, I think that's a good one. But you gave this example of what I think most of us would consider like an extreme case, like lose a job. But I think that there are, outside of that, even more kind of minor potential reassurances that men need on a regular basis. And you can kind of talk through some of those, but even like, you know what? And it can be as casual potentially as, you know what, you're a great dad. You go out and play baseball with your son or run home from work so that you can see, them give a speech or something that might be like, oh, if you can't make it to Donuts with Dads, it's okay. It's not a problem, but you make adjustments so that you can. Like those kinds of things that we may overlook as just parenting, or we may overlook by, hey, you put gas in my car. Man, I really appreciate that. You really take care of me. You really make sure that we're good. Or cooking dinner. Man, I was so tired. You did a great job. Whatever even those kind of reassurances along the way that can be helpful to a man feeling like, okay, I'm moving forward. And like you said, even in our marriage, there's been times where like, I see you go so hard for our family. And I feel it's my responsibility to both acknowledge like, man, thank you so much. I'll come home sometimes, y'all, he's so great. But I'll come home and he would have like mopped the kitchen and, like do all of these things. So I think that need for male affirmation, and I've said this regularly, particularly in a world that does not necessarily build up men for character. They'll be like, oh, he's so fine, or he got so much money, or he's in such a great position in his organization, but just the guy who puts gas in his wife's car or walks the dog so that she doesn't have to, or picks up the kids from school, like the things that take time that go unacknowledged are, I would say, also classify as that consistent reassuring. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's absolutely an amazing assessment. Like that's definitely needed, needs to be done probably more. We don't ask for it. Right. So that's something definitely I would say, hey, if you're not doing that, definitely consider doing that. Just kind of giving that reassurance just on a regular basis. We need the affirmation, whether we speak it or not. The one thing I know, though, just so I can be clear, it's whenever we mess up. Can I have that same reassurance?
So it has to be that consistent feeling of, if I'm doing something great or I drop the ball, quote unquote, right, I'm still going to be cared for.
Because what happens is, I know y'all can do it. I'm saying y'all being a wife can do it, because I see it do it to y'all do it with your sons.
About our son.
Yeah, with your sons, and you got your mother of a son, and y'all, when they mess up, y'all know how to reassure them. and kind of make sure, you know what, no, to get through that moment as best as y'all can. You don't give up on it. You reassure them. I don't care how big the mistake is.
Because, listen.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
If that could be transitioned over to the husband, think about what that would do for him when he messes up.
What would you say to women that say, well, I'm not your mama? What would you say to that?
I'm not asking you to be my mom and guide me.
I'm not saying
No,
me.
I'm
Okay.
not you. You said, what would I say?
Yeah.
I'm giving you what would I say.
I'm just clarifying. That's not okay.
No. I guess what would I say? I would say, and I'm not asking you to guide me, wife. I'm asking you just to reassure me. And you got to understand as a wife, those are two different things, right? To say, hey, you got this, or basically, hey, here are the steps you got to take. That's mothering, of giving them the steps and the guidance of what they need to take. To reassure me, saying, you got this. You know what? I got your back. Whatever you need me to do. That's reassuring.
Gotcha.
So that's the difference how I would look at it, from mothering mentality versus reassuring.
Cool. Okay, so we've got the first one, reassuring on a regular basis on some of the small things, the great things that you do along the way, but also when there's a mistake or a challenge.
More importantly, the mistake.
More importantly, the mistake. I got it.
Get that right. I think if we get that part right, the other stuff you're gonna reassure in other times for sure. If you can reassure when you make a mistake, you're gonna definitely reassure when you're taking out the trash. Right? If you're not reassuring when you make a mistake, you might or may not reassure in a good time.
A scripture that says like, a brother is born for adversity, or a friend is born for adversity. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not.
Well, my point is, I probably need to go back and read that. But my point is that in those challenging times, the need to know that somebody's in your corner. I think that's a big one. Okay, number 2. Does she provide solutions versus just bringing problems? Okay.
So this is the idea of that things may have to change, right? Situations may have to change for the relationship, whether doing this different, doing that different, this, that, and the other. But I think every man, and every person, we're talking about the man and husband in this case, but would want someone to bring a solution to the table. Hey, here's an issue. Here's my recommendation on how we should handle it. Now, give them opportunity to reject it or not do it, and then we can go to the next level. Like, okay, hey, maybe they're not where they should be and how they're receiving what you're telling them. But just to bring a complaint doesn't signify that, you know what, that's a positive environment that's being built.
Okay. Okay. It's just the verbiage so it's not that she herself is a problem, that she's bringing problems. It's that we're only viewing problems from the position of there's a problem.
There's a problem, right.
Versus, okay, how can we look at this differently? How can we work through this together
so that
team
up on it then? Okay, hey, here's the issue. Bills aren't being paid, this, that, and the other. You know what? I can't believe you. That's a different mentality, saying, okay, hey, hold on. Hey, how do we try this? Hey, why don't we put money aside for that? Or whatever, when we do this with the kids, here's the solutions based off a problem that we actually have.
So what would you say to a person that's overwhelmed with the amount of challenges they're facing as a couple? It might not just be a bill. It might be several bills. It might not just be one challenge with a child. It might be you're having multiple issues with the same or multiple children. It might not just be one thing. How would you, from the male perspective, say that this needs to be addressed so that he consistently feels supported?
I think, and this is for anybody, but maybe you're talking about a husband, maybe a wife has a lot of issues maybe going on right in the household that may need to be.
It wouldn't just be the wife having the issues. It would be both of them having issues in the household.
Both having issues in the house. I think you have to take a step back. You can't do everything at once. Okay. Right? There's only certain things you can only do, and should probably focus on maybe the major ones first. Right? And we have to define what major is. Maybe it's a major bill. Maybe it's the major decision about a kid. Maybe it's whatever it is, right? Major, how we're going to run our household. Let's get that framework kind of understood and working on that, which may take time. Because other stuff may end up still being what it is because you got these so many different other issues that are going on. You're going to have to focus on something. Get that something fixed, and then move to the next. Maybe for me, I would create a priority list. Okay, what's our priorities? Give us if we have 10 of them, what's our top 5?
But would you say that some of this, the male would have to be fairly open to? Like, he couldn't just shut down, and then you're trying to come up with solutions. Because what if that is the challenge? Like maybe these things haven't been done. Maybe she hasn't been reassuring. Maybe there's been a lack of trust or communication. Maybe there's been some arrogance or pride. Or how would the wife in this case, kind of break through those barriers to get to the point where now this is being received?
That's a complicated question with a complicated answer.
Okay.
And go a lot of different ways with it. But it goes down to, can I trust you? I think most men can ultimately, can I trust you, not with what you do, but with how you maybe handle me. Mm-hmm. And if we go back to the first one, how you handle my mistakes. I messed up and you roll your eyes, even physically or internally. We feel both of them. We like, that breaks the trust. That starts chipping away at the trust factor of like, man. And then I got to witness how you handle our son in a totally different way. And I'm like, okay, so the ability is there. You're just not giving it to me, which breaks down the trust factor.
Yeah. And you said son, but there could be so many other ways that somebody could see how you handle other people.
Right. Son is the obvious one because we definitely see, okay, that's another male figure. He's messing up. He did something in school or did something in work, whatever have you. And like, it's a pat on the back, like, okay, you mad, but you still be mad. But you're like, come on, we got to do better. Let me help you. Let me show you that it's more of a like, get back up versus like hounding on the idea that the mistake was made.
One of the things I'm getting, and you can tell me if this is true or not as we go into the third one, is that men, and I don't want to misspeak where it's offensive, so maybe correct my verbiage, but men are far more fragile than we may give credit to them, give credit for, where they do need the affirmations that we give our children. They do need the grace that we may give to a friend or a parent. They do need like the solution-driven conversations like we would have in the workplace. So it's really interesting that some of these, I can see multiple applications that we might do it elsewhere that our spouse may observe, because you were talking about observing it from a mother to son, but that the spouse may observe, well, you have it for them and you have it for them and you have it for them, but you don't have it for me, which could kind of lead to this breakdown in the relationship, because it's like it's something about how you are handling me that you're not willing to give that to me. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's very, very good observation. For a lot of men, I'm not going to say for every man, I'll speak for a lot of us, though, just the people I've interacted with, we want everything y'all want as a woman. So you want to be
card right here.
Yeah, what's that?
That's the whole show.
That's the whole show.
We want what you want.
We want what you want, right? And it may look different, but we want to be loved. We want to be thought about. Yeah. We want to be desired. We want to be, random thought about, hey, you know what? I'm just thinking about you. What are the messages that are sent back and forth? Like, man, okay, you're working hard today. I know you're out there late, coming home. You're gonna be home to 8:00. Appreciate you. Like, we want the same thing with the same thing you want as a woman, right? Or as a wife. And that oftentimes gets like overlooked to say, okay, you know what? Long as I can feed them and do some other stuff, the other three things, they're good. Right? I'm not going to go to the
other three things. I was like, I heard two.
Yeah. I left it. Well, we can, people are smart. They can figure out the rest of them.
I don't know if you think about it. I know one for sure.
Right. But the idea is that it gets simplified down to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I speak on that though? Because I do think that society has told us that as long as you're good in the bedroom, he should be fine. And men are often, this is probably going to come out weird, but men are kind of debased to this kind of like sexual being only. Like the other things, okay, we'll fix it with sex. It'll be fine. Just, hey, yeah, we're going to have an argument. We're going to have makeup sex. You get on my nerves. You're down. You're out. I know how to remedy that, how to get your mind off of that. When really, it can really go a lot deeper than that from an emotional perspective. Oh. And what a man needs is really not just sex.
Right. No, absolutely.
But I think that that's what so often is communicated, that that's all that men really need or want.
Yep. And I think we are trying to defy that myth with some of these here. None of this in here has sex in it.
Right.
Not that it's not important, not that it's not thought about, and none of that, right? But sex is literally the fruit of longing for some of these things here.
Oh, wow.
If I'm
That's
not, we even
deep.
got to it, right? If I'm not reassured and I go to work and this woman reassure me, I end up opening the gateway to then the fruit of that reassurance, which is sex. Or some other thing, whatever it is. It could be conversation, whatever starts off and don't need to be there, right? But like you said, it gets dumbed down, in my opinion, to say, here's all a man needs.
I love that. You said that the fruit of these things is a sexual relationships, is a level of intimacy, physically, emotionally, the trust built out of the intimacy of really getting some of these. So I want to make sure we get these last couple in. So she makes home a peaceful place.
Right. Ideal wife, right? And this is from a man's perspective, not saying he doesn't have anything accountability to any of these. We're just looking at it from one side as of right now, right? But he should be helping promote that as well, right? He can come in raging and this, that, and the other. But the idea is like, okay, she's doing everything she can to make the home a peaceful place, right? It's not a place of like dissension and argument. I come home like, ooh, I don't know what it's gonna be like, and hopefully that he does the same thing for her, right? In this case, but typically women control the atmosphere of the home. Yeah, they typically control that. It's their domain, right? It's their kingdom. He's the king, but it's their kingdom as far as making sure how it's run, what it looks like, what it feels like. Not talking about physically like looks like, but like just I walk into a house and like, man, it's just, men don't really set that. We help sustain it, you know what I mean, and support it, right? And that's our role in that. But you know what? She establishes like, hey, you know what? It's not going to be any dissension. I don't care if there is something that's going on. We're not going to let it linger. Right. And helping set that standard for the house.
Yeah, I like that you pointed out the difference between having an argument or a disagreement and it being an atmosphere of this argument and contention. Because I think that a lot of times, I know, at least from my perspective, a lot of women maybe that grew up in certain spiritual traditions are kind of told like, you don't want to argue with your spouse, you don't want to nag him, you don't want to do all of this. And so you end up just like you kind of like sweeping stuff under the rug that needs to be addressed because you don't want to be a nagging wife. You don't want to have an argument. You don't want to address the thing head on. And then you build up resentment and toxicity in your house because there's so many things that go unaddressed versus having what we would say like an environment, an atmosphere where it's just, you said it well, dissension, where there's always like an argument pending. You have to be careful where you step because there's so much buried under the carpet. We're tripping over it all the time. And then there's just all these issues because you're not addressing it, because it's not a peaceful place, because there is a way to have a disagreement and it still be a peaceful environment. It's still not be an attack. It's still, and I'm not even talking about physical attack. That's a whole nother thing. But where it's not like I'm cutting you down and I'm ripping you apart and we yelling at the top of our lungs and we slamming doors and all this stuff. Or you can have a really dysfunctional argument by really saying nothing, by just totally shutting down, by being passive aggressive. Well, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do my thing, spending time in separate rooms because you don't want to address it. And that is just as contentious an atmosphere for people shutting down and not having talks versus having blowout discussions or whatever. So I think it's really interesting that you addressed a peaceful home is still a place where you can have important and challenging conversations, but it not being somewhere where either person is being cut down.
100%, right. And both people, just to be clear, have accountability of trying to make that a peaceful home. And the idea is that the husband is coming to the table trying to talk through some of it the best as he can, right? Most wives know their husband's level of communication. You know, if he can kind of give you an answer and this, that, and the other, he not really able to go deep at that point in time, you got to respect that, hopefully, and keep coming back at it, right, in a different way, maybe trying to, write about it, email about it, text about it, right, to kind of help maybe pull back some of those layers, have smaller conversations versus one long, whatever it is, figure out how to
work within the context of your relationship. Because I think both partners want that. And I think you just pointed that out, that they're both responsible for it being a peaceful home, but that she's willing to really partner with her spouse and to say, how can this work for us? And you said something in this last one, you said respect. And that was number 4 on the list, that he feels and is given respect. Can you talk about that for a second?
It's just the idea we want our wives to respect. Not to say a man is dominant any kind of way. Like, you got to do what I say. Respect. That's not really what the angle I'm taking at all. And I don't agree with that philosophy.
Okay. Thank you.
But the respect of, and going back to the mistake, or going back to, let's say, hey, we are trying to operate. I'm trying to do something, and maybe it doesn't work out, right? And I'm not measuring up to something that you said, right? Like, hey, I didn't miss the last 4 dates for whatever have you, supposed to have some date nights, this, that, and the other. And not to say that's not an issue, but it becomes disrespectful when it's like, oh, here he go. He ain't about nothing. He ain't da-da-da-da. Even we hear the conversation when talking to your girls, or I walk into the room, I go on a date. Yeah, right. We'll see. That's disrespectful mentality, right? For this, I mean, it's subtle, but like, a man gonna take that disrespect, right? Like, man, okay, maybe I was, forgot about it, honestly forgot about it, or I'm trying to go through it. I didn't have the finances. I want to do something special, and something came up. Work stuff happened, or I put the kids, in front by accident. I shouldn't have. Whatever you do, honestly, just like, you might have missed the mark. But then the disrespect comes in, was like, okay, you know what? My man made a mistake, and now I'm disrespecting. I take it like, let's say I use, somebody maybe famous that we say, Bishop Jakes, right? If he makes a mistake or does something bad, will we kind of like roll our eyes at him if he make a mistake? Or a Tyler Perry, anybody say we want ultimate respect, right? Would we kind of like give them the attitude that we give our spouses? Or would we kind of say, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm upset. I can't believe he did that or she did that, whatever have you. But I'm not going to like disrespect them with my posture, with my words, or with my eyes, or with my attitude. I'm not going to do that. And that's the same thing that a man or a husband would want. Like, you know what? Yes, I missed the mark, but do I have to get the disrespect on top of missing the mark?
That's interesting. I'm going to think through that, because I think sometimes we think about, there's a couple things that could be said about this. Absolutely agree with you that it should not be an environment where disrespect is just kind of handed out because something is missed. I think to some degrees, I think they're the obvious ones, like what disrespect looks like. But for some, I think that there are conversations that need to be had. Like, this is how I feel about when you do this. And it probably should happen in calm. Because some families, depending on where you're raised, who raised you, how you were raised, something could be seen as disrespectful that you would never think is like, I'm just expressing myself, or I didn't even know that you would take it like that, or I just had to get it out. Which, not to say that those are excuses, but at some point in the relationship, there does have to be a communication so that one spouse doesn't feel like they cannot have a perspective or be upset about something, or can figure out how to communicate when they're frustrated without causing offense or causing their husband, in this case, to be offended. So I think I think respect is absolutely critically important, because it goes back to breaking down the trust of relationship. Especially, and I want to say this because you mentioned it, like talking down about your spouse to whomever is always out of line.
Right. Facts.
It doesn't matter if it's your best friend, if it's your parent, like it will never bode the relationship well to tear down your spouse to someone else. Right. And if they overhear you doing that, oh man, like, I don't know, that recovery process is going to be something.
So true.
Because it defies the trust in the relationship. It destroys that foundation that you're trying to build, even if you're upset. Watch how you behave when you're already angry. That's when you need to go get a journal. You need to go on a jog or something, because you need to be able to work that out before using your words, because those words can never come back. Okay, last one.
Oh. So some men, this is for somebody out there, right, that may be listening to this.
Okay.
The wife thinks she's not disrespecting, right? She's on the phone. She's talking about her husband to somebody. The husband comes in. She immediately hangs up. You don't think he don't know that conversation's about him? Like, he knows that, right? This is not directed at you, by the way.
I've never done that. So.
No, you never have, I know. Not directed at you by any shit. But like, the husband knows that, right? And women are doing that. And they having conversations, thinking that he don't know, but when he comes in, hanging up the phone, and the conversation's about him, and he knows, like, okay, he come in smiling, like nothing, everything good, everything. And she comes in smiling, and he knows it's not good. He knows he's being disrespected behind his back.
Well, And so, that can happen. It doesn't even have to be immediately hangs up. You can be like, girl, I'll call you back.
Yeah.
Our mom, he's home. I'll talk to you later, or whatever. Or if somebody he walks in the room. And and let me say this, because this can be real sketchy. Mm-hmm. This can happen when you're talking to your kids about your spouse.
Ooh, that's a good one. You're right.
And so you have to be mindful, because then your kids start looking at him different. And then he knows not only are now you disrespecting him by how you're treating him, but you're teaching disrespect to your children. And how they are supposed to treat him. So just know that. And that's true. Let me say this part, because this can get kind of questionable. But be particularly mindful of that when you are a blended family and you're talking about the other spouse to somebody.
That's good.
Because that will eventually come out, and it can speak to your current spouse or to whomever about how you would treat or allow your children to treat their father or mother or whatever. Okay, last one, because we only have like seconds left. He can build things together with her.
Right. I think talking about the ideal wife, right? He's found some things in common, and she's searched out things in him as well that they can actually ultimately build something together, right? Could be a family at first, but once them kids is gone, then what? Right? Can we continue to build things, ideas, concepts, movements together over a long period of time?
Build together. Yeah, that's huge. So thank y'all for joining us for this conversation. As we really looked into a husband's view on marriage, of what makes a good wife. We appreciate if you would like, comment, and subscribe, and check out our website for more content and resources. Let's talk about it.